One, two, three, four.
All right, and welcome back to season 3, episode 9. So we got some news to talk about, mostly about the PlayStation 5. That's going to be our main topic for the show. And then we have some other fun news to talk about, and of course esports also started up as well, and that's the big excitement, because I think that was needed, because it went on for a very long time. So with that, let's get into esports. In the LCS, which they currently are still playing at the time of this recording this, so this isn't the final results for this week, but currently we have Evil Genius and Cloud9 tied for first, being 2-0. Team Liquid and Golden Guardians tied for third right now, being 1-0. We have FlyQuest at 5th, being 1-1, and then TSM, Immortals, Dignitas, Counterlogic Gaming are all tied for 6th, being 0-1, and then 100 Thieves is in last place, being 0-2. In LEC, we have Rogue and Fnatic tied for first, being 3-0. SK, Mad Lions, Team Vitality tied for third, being 2-1. We have Origins, G2, and Misfits tied for 6th, being 1-2. Excel and Skilluck 04 tied for 9th, being 0-3. And then in the other regions, which is Korea, they haven't played yet. I believe that is the same with LPL. Oh no, LPL has played. Interesting. So LPL, we have GD Gaming and Top Esports tied for first, being 2-0. Then we have Victory 5, Team WE, Royals Never Give Up, and LNG tied for second or third, being 2-1. And just a note here too, Uzi, who is the ADC on Royals Never Give Up, he is a pretty famous ADC in the scene. He is retired now. He retired over the break. So, best wishes to him. It's sad that he never really, I don't know if he won a world championship. I don't think he did. I don't believe he did. But he definitely won a couple MSIs, at least on the international stage. And I think that's as far as he got. But it's sad that I remember they were contenders to win Worlds one year, and they didn't get that far. So now we have Sunning between 2-2, tied for 7th. And then for 8th place, we have E-Star, Edward Gaming, Vicey Gaming, Invictus, JD, FunPlus, Phoenix, all tied for 8th, being 1-1. And then 14th, we have Rogue Warriors, 0-1. And then Dominus Esports and Billy B Gaming being 0-2 and 0-2, tied for 15th. And then Oh My God, tied for 17th, last place, being 0-3. In the Overwatch League, they just started as well. And I know there's a lot of trades that happened in the Overwatch League. I don't really follow Overwatch League as much as I probably should, but I do know that a lot of trades happen. A lot of people aren't playing or were playing. And a lot of things switched up over the off season with the Overwatch League. But currently we have Shanghai in first, then Philadelphia, then San Francisco, New York, Florida, Guangzhou, Paris, Hangzhou Spark, Los Angeles, Seoul Dynasty, Los Angeles Gladiators, Atlanta, Houston, London, Dallas, Toronto, Chengdu, Washington Justice, Vancouver, and Boston is in last place. So with that out of the way, we get to move into some of the funner stuff. The games that come out for this month. We had the Elder Scrolls come out, Greymoor, that came out this week. That's the DLC. It came out for the Xbox and PlayStation. We had Samurai Showdown come out June 11th. We had The Elder Scrolls come out on Stadia as well. That comes out this week, as well as The Last of Us Part 2, which comes out in like 4 days, which is what everyone's been looking forward to, which we're going to talk about a bit in a little bit. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom comes out next week as well, or on the 23rd. We have a fairy tale game, interesting. A lot of small games that are coming out, and it's a lot of them, I would say. And then we kind of go into July, and July is kind of stale for the remainder of the month, like it normally goes. It gets stale until like late August, and then September, of course, where we get Cyberpunk in September, as well as the Destiny expansion that they talked about, which it's interesting. I mean, I guess I'll talk about that for a bit. Like I know that I follow a lot of game communities, and I know that Destiny is having kind of a crisis right now with their game community. I don't think a lot of the players like the direction where they're taking Destiny 2 currently. And then I know Borderlands 3, which I told you, like I said, when that game launched, it just was not a viable product, I think. What they're trying to do versus what they like want it to do compared to like 2 is still much the better game. I feel like when they made Borderlands 3, it was very it was not a final product, to say the least, compared to what 2 was, compared to what they busted out with 2. 3 should have been a whole lot better, and where the systems in 3 were a lot better, as we see with a lot of games, the story and the content wasn't, and you need to have a balance of both. And maybe it's like I know it's hard to focus on one, but you need to have a balance of both. And I think that's also goes for a lot of games, where if content's lacking and the systems are good, like Metal Gear Solid 5 is a prime example of that, where the content's lacking but the systems are very good, but it still got a very good review because, like, even though the content was lacking, it was still kind of somewhat a full game, and the systems really carried that, for example. All right, so let's get into some very interesting news and exciting stuff that I want to talk about before we get into our main talk about PlayStation. We have Persona 4 Gold was released on Steam. So this is the ported version. If you don't know what Persona 4 Gold is, you don't know the Persona series in general. It's a JRPG series about generally follows some sort of protagonist, and they have to and they go into and they fight shadows, which are monsters, and they carry their own personas, which are based off of mythological beings and gods. It's a very fantastic series. I played Persona 5 in 2017. After I had a fire in my family, and I fell in love with the game. Currently, I'm playing Persona 5 Royals because it was on sale recently, and even though it's pretty much exactly the same, it's still so much fun to play and just such a fun time waster. And as I've heard before, where Persona 5 has better systems and they improved upon the formula a lot more, but Persona 4 had a much better story from what I've read and experience. And Persona 4 story is one of the best, where Persona 5 has better systems. Persona 5 in itself has a really good story. Persona 4 has a better story. And so they released Persona 4 Golden, which is like Persona 5 Royal. It's, it's the complete full added content version of Persona 4 to Steam. They ported it, and Persona 4 Golden was originally a game, a port for the PS Vita, and the only way to get it till now was to pirate it and get an emulator. So I'm really excited to see that this game is now on Steam, and I definitely recommend you should check it out if you get the chance. It's only $20. Because Persona 5, if you haven't played it, is so good, and it's definitely a game worth your time checking out. So now with that segue, we're going to segue into The Last of Us Part 2. I already pre-ordered it. It's downloaded on my PlayStation. I'm waiting for it to come out, and I will get you my review on the take as soon as possible, just like I did with Final Fantasy VII. But the review for the game, or copies are being reviewed, and they're getting very well received, even with the spoiler stuff that came out. A lot of people are rating it very high. It's currently sitting at a 96 on Metacritic, which is extremely high. Not a whole lot of games, like only like, again, right here, if you look on the screen, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Persona 5 Royals, which is a game we just talked about, is sitting at a 95 on Metacritic. And then again, when we talk about earlier in our previous shows, the Final Fantasy VII Remake is sitting at 87. So 90s is really high for games, and for this game to sit at 96, I'm expecting a lot of good things from it. Because I think, especially from what all the rumors and the spoilers and things that came out of Naughty Dogs and the employees, I think the creators of this game really poured their heart and soul into it from just what I've seen. And I'm really excited to experience what they created. So, with that, we're going to get into our main talk, the PlayStation 5 review, starting now. All right, so we are back. I want to talk about the full thing slowly. Overall, it was very good. I'm just gonna play these videos in the background. Also, if you're watching on our YouTube, I definitely recommend you check it out. Overall, it's a really good show. I think they nailed it. There are some concerns that I'm going to talk about later on in the show, but let's for now just talk about the games and how it went in general. So I know they opened it with I came in 7 minutes late. Sadly, so I caught like the really openers things of it, but I know they opened with some sort of GTA news where like GTA 5 was going to be free or something like that for PlayStation once you transition over or something like that, or online, which is cool. I guess it's kind of, GTA is a game that I think everyone's experienced now, and they're either waiting for the next one or playing Red Dead. I understand why this game has been around for so long. Really, it just comes down to Rockstar is one of like the industry leaders when it comes to video games. For example, like video games, for example, are getting more and more expensive to create. And for example, when they did Red Dead Redemption, it cost, I believe, $1 billion. So it's extremely expensive so far. So just seeing that, they set the bar on how like the quality of games generally in the industry. So it's understandable why GTA 5 has been around as long as it has. So that's good. So the first game they talked about was Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man Miles Morales, or yeah, so it's about Miles Morales. He is, kind of the African American Spider-Man that kind of came with the reboot of Marvel. He's a relatively new character, very loved. He's kind of the main character of Into the Spider-Verse, for example. And this game is it's weird. So when I first saw it, my first reaction was, damn, they're making a Spider-Man game, the next sequel to Spider-Man PS4, and it's gonna be about Miles Morales. That's fucking awesome. No, that was my initial reaction. But they didn't really say too much about it, and from what they were showing in the stream, if you go and watch the stream, they showed this CGI kind of trailer that may be gameplay or may not be gameplay. But to me, what followed after it, which is Insomniac's Ratchet and Clank, which we're going to talk about in a bit, and just how much they showed of that, they have not been working or developing this game at all. They just showed off this game just to see, like, oh, it's in the works, it's an idea we have. But it's at this point, it's just an idea, because what they were showing, how much progress they had for Ratchet and Clank versus this game, it's weird. Like this game is just like, don't take it as anything but a grain of salt, because that's honestly what it is right now. But to talk about why it's so confusing and why I thought that way, it's supposed to be, so like first it was saying that this was going to be DLC, like an expansion to Spider-Man on the PS5. So like there was that talk, and then they kind of clarified and said it was going to be a standalone game. So like something like Uncharted Lost Legacy for existence, like a $40 short standalone game. So it's very weird what they were gonna do with this game, which is why when they followed it with Ratchet and Clank, I was just like, okay, this is just an idea right now. This isn't anything other than an idea. You know, this is nothing. So it's good to see that, you know, they're working on that, and I'd love to see like a full-fledged Spider-Man Miles Morales game, but I don't think that's what we're probably going to get. So next up, they showed off some really cool stuff. They showed off another Gran Turismo 7 game, racing game, showing off kind of the power of the PS5. That was kind of the thing about this stream. A lot of these games showed off the power of the PS5, which I'm going to talk about in a bit because it's going to be very interesting. So they showed off that racing game. It looked really cool, looked really clean. I've been meaning to do a talk about that because my dad brought to my attention just how sports have been real sports have been affected, and I believe T1 or Grand Racing. And I have to do my research on it, but I'm definitely going to be a talk about that because it's definitely interesting and it's a topic of interest to me. So they showed off that, and then they showed off Ratchet and Clank. Again, like you go and look at it, where it's like this is made by Insomniac too, so same people who make Spider-Man, and just how much detail, how much more polished this game and this demo and the stuff that they showed up for this was compared to the Spider-Man just shows me that like right now all their resources are on Ratchet and Clank, and that's to be expected. When they showed it off, right, one of the big things about the PlayStation now and the next generation consoles is loading time. And it's very interesting. So there's been some talks about from third-party developers being like, when you're a third-party developer, you're creating a game for both Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Not like a first-party developer like Insomniac or Santa Monica Studios, who makes God of War, or Naughty Dog, who makes The Last of Us. They aren't. They're making those games just for PlayStation. So that's the machine that they're using for. So they're gonna push everything to its limits with the PlayStation's like new SSD, which is like the huge thing. So they're gonna push everything to the limits, and that's why we won't see load times and things like that. But when it comes to third party, when they're making their games for everyone, that's not gonna happen. So they were saying like a lot of the stuff that the PS5 offers and tech wise, a lot of third party developers may not be able to utilize it because it would just be too expensive and too time consuming to utilize the hardware that the PS5 offers compared to first party titles or developers, which is very interesting. And Ratchet and Clank, like I look it up on, if you're looking at this on YouTube, I'm having it kind of up on the screen. If you're looking at it, it's kind of a tech demo of itself. A lot of the games were for the PS5, just to see how much, you know, like load times when he's traveling to world, there's no load times. But is that really going to happen with a lot of other games? Probably not. So like, you know, it's a very interesting talk in itself when they're talking about like all this technical stuff, what sells consoles, but like that itself doesn't sell consoles to me. What's gonna sell the PS5 is its first party games, of course, which they already have really good lined up. And the second big reason is where are your friends? What console are your friends playing? You know, are they playing PlayStation or Xbox? That's what's going to be the driving factor in this console war. And I think PlayStation won that so like really well because they already had really good first party titles. So that's what's going to decide. That's what push and sells these consoles as a whole. The only reason I don't even play games. Most of the games I play with my friends are on PC. Like, PC is honestly where it's at. But a lot of households, a lot of people can't afford a $1,000 PC. I myself am really grateful and lucky that I was able to afford the setup that I have. But like the only reason I have a PlayStation or a console right now is just to play first party titles. like I'm playing just Persona, The Last of Us, God of War, and like Kingdom and Square Enix games. It's the only reason I have the console. Otherwise, I play all my shit on PC because it's, I don't have to worry about that hardware stuff that like the PlayStation, Xbox are trying to selling, because it's already been there for years. So it's very interesting topic conversation. But Ratchet and Clank Rifts Apart, it looks cool. I'm not really a huge Ratchet and Clank fan, but and I've never really played a game, but it looks cool. It's something definitely to push and show off the limits of the PlayStation. Next, we had a new game by Square. It's the same studio who made Final Fantasy 15 Project Theta. Really nothing about it. A lot of jumping. Looked cool. I can't really talk about it. It just looked kind of cool, and it's cool to see that come out. We had a lot of cool indie games. We had we have Stray coming out, which seems to be about like a cat and like walking around in some sort of cyberpunk world. We had Returnal, which is like a survival horror game sort of thing. It reminded me of Prey a lot. That's what it looked like. We had a new Little Big Planet title, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which is coming out. So that looks really kind of interesting. I always liked Little Big Planet. Funny story: when I was in went to school, a school called Chicago Quest, which is kind of a school based on like game learning. It was a cool concept. It was just like the staff was really didn't execute, but it was a really cool concept effort. I really liked it. And one of our assignments, we play Little Big Planet and we would build levels in. That's what like we would learn in one of our classes. And I remember my teacher, he's like, "Oh, we need an extra copy." And I was like, "Oh, I have an extra copy." And me being the fool that was, gave him the copy, and I got it back again. Just really sad. But just fun little story about a Little Big Planet. But they're definitely really cool, creative workspace games. We have Kini, the Bridge of Spirits, another cool little kind of small indie game type of thing that they showed. Looks really fun. We had Oddworld Soulstorm, looked like a fun little game as well. And then we had Ghostwire Tokyo, a kind of horror, scary game that takes place in Tokyo, Japan. Godfall, they showed off, which is the next kind of game by Gearbox, which I'm very skeptical about. It just looks like Warframe to me, like Warframe meets For Honor, and I don't think that's gonna work. Like, I think Gearbox is itself, they're really looking for a hit other than Borderlands, and Borderlands 3 is just right now a disaster, as I talked about earlier. Jet the Far Shore, they showed off as well. And then Solar Ash is made by the people who made Hyperlife Drift. Looks really cool. They showed that off as well. Hitman 3 had a teaser. Hitman 3 was really cool looking. I know the last Hitman received a lot of good reviews, and a lot of good like content came out of it, like the briefcase that they throw and it follows the person. So it's really cool to see another Hitman game being made, and they showed off too. That's when I really got excited. Astro's Playroom, kind of a Sony small PS PlayStation title. They do this all the time. This was always from the PS3 days that they did like these small kind of PlayStation titles. NBA 2K21 and basketball. Demon Souls remake. This is huge. This game has kind of been begging for a remake. If you don't know what Demon Souls is, it's the precursor to Dark Souls. So Demon Souls was the first game that came out before they have Dark Souls, and it was a huge hit. And it came out I think small, like in the PS3 or PS2s. But having this be remade is extremely exciting for me, especially as a fan of the Soul games and the fans of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. It isn't made by them. I think it's being developed by a different studio, but having Demon Souls be made is really exciting. So that's definitely something to look forward to, because it's the precursor. It's what started it all. It's what started that very difficult type of gameplay loop of the boss hits super hard and you don't, and you scale and it's difficult, and in the world and everything's out there to set with one goal: to kill you. What started that design, Demon Souls, and perfected it in Dark Souls. And then, you know, of course, we got Sekiro, which was Game of the Year. That's really cool to see that that's coming out. Deathloop, it's made by the same people who made Dishonored. It looks very Dishonored. If you see it, it's about a game who's stuck in a death loop. You know, he's trying to escape a prison, and everyone out there is set to kill him. They showed this off at E3 at Bethesda, I believe, last year a little bit, and they just showed you like just a bit of a trailer right now. So it was really nothing, but it's definitely something I think interesting, because I really like that studio who makes Dishonored. They make really good, I think, stealth sort of first person games. Um, and see what their next IP and their next title will be very interesting, and I'm excited to see what they got. Then we have Resident Evil Village, or Resident Evil 8, the next installment in the Resident Evil franchise. After Resident Evil 7 was very well received when it first came out, and then they remaked Resident Evil 2, and then they remaked Resident Evil 3, which we know this year was kind of meh. Resident Evil 8 is their next big title, and it's also going to be first person like Resident Evil 7 was. And it's also it's going to be very interesting. It's very interesting that they call it Resident Evil Village instead of 8. Of course, it's a play on words, because like you see the Roman numerals VII, but it's very interesting that they would do that, and market it that way. But it's if you don't know, even though Resident Evil 7 really seems like a standalone game, an entirely new reboot to the Resident Evil series, it does tie into the whole story with the T-Virus and Umbrella and everything. It's still there. You got to kind of dig deep to look into it, but it's still there, and it looks like this game's going back to that a little bit more, with Chris Redfield, you know, being in it and showing it in the trailer. So that's definitely something really cool, and I'm definitely looking looking forward to that. Next, we have Paygaramata. It's a new game that also came out. It felt very Death Stranding, you know, CGI see-through cat, excuse me. So definitely something to look forward to. And then my biggest excitement that they showed off being Horizon Zero Dawn, or not the Horizon Zero Dawn sequel to that game, being Horizon Forbidden West. So now she's traveling from I think the game takes place kind of in Canada to like the more American regions. In this game, if you haven't played it on PlayStation yet, it was a hit. It was a hidden gem out of all the games that came out that generation. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. And just like the world and just how they did it, it was something really exciting and creative, and just a new IP and something fresh that we don't get a lot nowadays. Now, like, it's like we get new sequels or reboots, and, you know, because those are safe, you know, they know when they make a new Resident Evil, it's going to sell, because it's, you know, a very well-known franchise. When they make a new, you know, Pokemon or whatever, it's going to sell. When they make a new, like, Last of Us or Uncharted, it's going to sell, because they're already big games. But like, new IPs themselves are so rare and so dangerous for the community to make, that when you get one like Horizon Zero Dawn was, and it came out and it was really good, I'm just happy to see it. And like, even though again now that's in that safe loop where now we know that Horizon games are always going to be a safe bet to make, at least especially if this one does well, if the new one does well. I'm just happy to see them making a new one, because the first one was really good, especially from Guerrilla, which they were, you know, only for Killzone games for the longest, and Killzone to me was just not a very interesting franchise. It was just like it was like the exclusive Gears of War or Call of Duty for PlayStation, and it never really went off. But when they decided to do this, they blew it out of the water. So just seeing this be made, it's really exciting to me. So with that out of the way, again, we're gonna go over. There's a lot of third-party stuff. They did a mix of both, which was really good to see. compared to how Xbox did it, but we're going to talk about the actual PlayStation. Again, just a brief recap on the Sony blog. They talk about Astral Playroom. They talk about Destruction All-Stars. Oop, I missed that one. That was like their own little first person. It's like a cool kind of battle royale Rocket League sort of game. Returnal. Then we have the Sackboy, Big Adventures, Gran Turismo 7, Demon Souls remake, Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Horizon Forbidden West are all their kind of first-party titles, and then everything else that I talked about are third-party titles that they also showed in there. But what are we here to talk about? Of course, it's the PlayStation 5. So the PlayStation 5 was actually announced. It was actually shown off. It looks to me, a lot of people are memeing it. It looks like a router. That's what a lot of people are saying. I think it looks really cool. I think I'm really happy to see that they finally showed it to us because they were late to the game. They've been extremely late to the game compared to Microsoft. Microsoft already showed off the Xbox and what it looks like, giant fucking tower. But they haven't showed off what their game looks or what their things look like. So it's very exciting to see that this is now out there and we have an idea on what it looks like and what it can do and the power behind it. The interesting business decision, what I have to understand, I already talked about hardware a little bit, but the interesting business decision is that they have a digital version. So as time goes on, of course, I've talked about it, especially with COVID and the riots that happened, GameStop is kind of dead. They're just dead. You know, it was a previous show that we talked about earlier in the season. They're not gonna be around, or they're on their exit. You know, they're on their way out. And a lot of people now don't buy disc games. Another talk we did was kind of the theme of this season, if we want to talk about versus I did talk digital versus physical, right? So a lot of now are buying digital games. I buy all my games digitally, and I talked about the risk about those in the previous show, so definitely check that out. So PlayStation's decision to have a version with the disk drive and one without the disk drive is very interesting, especially because they haven't announced prices for the PlayStation. There's no general price on how much they're going to sell this on. For both the PlayStation and Xbox, we don't have a price. And this shit comes out in literally like 4 or 5 more months when we hit the holiday season. And there's no price tag for it. So, and with Sony's decision to make 2 different systems, will the digital version be cheaper than the disc version? You think it would be. I think it should be. But how much? Again, we don't know. So it's a very interesting PlayStation decision by PlayStation to make this move. Because mostly likely, like me, I'm just going to buy the digital version. I don't need the disc. I don't use disc anymore. But then it's going to kind of suck. Because now I can't, like, you know, share with friends with the disc. So maybe it's a very interesting decision. I'm very interested to see what the entire media as a whole and the entire community as a whole is going to do about it. That's basically really it. Because like it's very interesting. I think what it comes down to with these consoles and this generation. Again, just to sum it up before we wrap it up, because we're going on longer than I usually do. First party games. That's the biggest one to me. What games are coming out on these consoles is the reason why I'm going to sell these consoles. Because first party games they're only made to sell consoles. Last of Us Part 2 is made to sell the PlayStation 5. That's why it's coming out at the end of cycle. So there's a transition between the two, and it's made to sell that. That's why it's coming out. That's why Horizon's coming out. That's why Spider-Man's coming out. It's made to sell the console. Same with Halo. You know, whatever Microsoft has in stores. Those are the reasons. Next, your friends. What are your friends buying? What are they playing? Are they buying? Your friends have always been Xbox people, so you're going to buy Xbox to play with your friends, or are you going to buy PlayStation to play with them? That's the next big thing. And the third interesting thing, which is a little bit more personal, is the companies. When it comes to hardware, I think Sony's always going to win. Sony's a hardware company. So they're always going to make better hardware than Microsoft. But when it comes to software, Microsoft's a better company because Microsoft is a software company. So now, as we see like also them pushing for these cloud services, and Sony made a deal with Microsoft so they could support their, Xbox Game Pass and these subscription cloud-based services. We're probably going to see both of them kind of team up a little bit more in order to do this. And that's something that I think you have to keep in mind when these things come out. But overall, I think this shot Sony in the lead so much just because they showed off what their games are compared to when Microsoft showed up what their games are, and it flopped. But Microsoft does have another conference set in July, I know of, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what they show off there. Alright, anyway, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of It's Not a Sport. Make sure to leave a like or a comment if you have anything you want to express. It's greatly appreciated just to get any sort of feedback from my viewers. If you want to listen to all of our past shows or just see, me up on the stream and what I'm talking about on video versions, if you have time to watch it, check out our YouTube channel. It's Not a Sport. That's all up there, as well as all of our previous shows and previous seasons are all up on YouTube. So that's the archive right there. So definitely check those out, subscribe, and leave a like. Next up, if you want to listen to the show and the podcast, always check out Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud. They always go up there whenever I upload the shows each week. So definitely check those out and make sure to follow those as well. Make sure to check out our website. It's Not a Sport to You. We're notasport.com, and our Instagram as well. It's Not a Sport to You. Make sure to follow that for all the news and cool posts that we do, as well as some personal art and things that I work on as well go up on there. Anyway, thank you for listening to this week's episode. This has been your host, Salty Waffles, signing off, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful climb.